Hey, hello again. I'm out on the Emmons Vista and Silver Forest Trail near sunrise on Mount Rainier. It's another warm, early fall day. Thought I'd get up in the mountains on a weekday, maybe when it's not so crowded, and look for a view. I had in mind to paint some of the foothills backlit with some snow, and I did find some beautiful scenes, some potential paintings, but I was more captured by this scene. It's kind of a different scene for me. It's looking uphill at a few layers of forest trees, some different types of trees, fir and pine and cedar, I think. Some living old trees, some dead trees, beautiful old skeletons of dead trees, some fallen logs, beautiful slope with just a few wildflowers left. So I thought this would make an interesting composition. It's got some reds in those fir or hemlock trees. I'm not sure what those are. And also in the slope leading up the hill. So I'm going to get set up, play with the composition a bit on my iPhone and see what kind of strikes me, and then develop a composition on the panel as I do the initial sketch and the turpentine wash. As always, thanks for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Alright, what's drawn me to the scene are the reds in some of these trees, and definitely those skeletons, those old silver trunks, fallen and standing. They're just beautiful against the deep blue sky. Since we're looking up the hill, we're looking up at the deepest, bluest part of the sky. It's just gorgeous against the warmer colors of the landscape. So I think that tells me right there what my intentions are for the painting. The perspective looking uphill, just kind of a unique perspective. The warmth of the landscape against the cool of the sky. So I want to think about perspective, I want to think about color temperature, and try to capture the beauty in the scene. I'm not sure if I'll include any shadows of the trees leading into the scene. It might be a nice lead-in. I might also just create a little more of a path leading up the hill. We'll see. I'll play with it as I do the wash. Quick rundown on my palette. I'm gonna skip the turpentine today and just use Gamsol. It's a little bit warm and the air is pretty still here in the trees. I've got Neo McGilp in this little cup and a little bit of Gamsol in this other cup. I'll add a little bit of Neo McGilp to each mix of paint to correct the viscosity. I like the paint to stick to this vertical palette, and I like it to be nice and soft, so just about room temperature butter consistency is about perfect for me. I know some artists like it stickier, harder, or wetter, and it just kind of comes with painting experience and your personal taste. I've got ivory black, Rembrandt cold gray, titanium white, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, sap green, burnt umber, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, cad red, cad yellow, Windsor lemon, Gamblin radiant lemon, and yellow ochre. And then I've got a few colors mixed up from the other day. I was up here doing a painting and I just saved those colors, so I think I might be able to use up some of those colors. I'm using a Pissarro oil primed linen panel. It's nice linen. I think it's Clausen's with an oil prime surface on Centra. So it's a little bit floppier than the Centurion panels or the Gorilla Painter panels that I like to use. It's much floppier, more flexible than the birch panels that I also like to use. But on a smaller 9x12 like this, it should be just fine. I find if I'm doing like a 8x16 or a 10x20 on this Centra, it can be a little annoying the way the corners bend. I'll start with a sketch using colors I'm seeing in the scene. For the distant trees, I'll use alizarin crimson and maybe a touch of ultramarine blue. Those cool colors will help keep those objects back in the distance. And as I come forward, I'll use warmer colors. And then I'll use those same colors most likely for the wash, the Gamsol wash. I'm using a small, long, ivory flat rosemary brush to get just to place the big shapes. Now as I do the Gamsol wash, I'm going to add a lot of Gamsol with a little bit of paint. I make sure that the Gamsol, anything that drips off my board, drips onto my pochade, my Daytripper pochade box, so I'm not polluting the environment. As I'm doing the wash, I will erase away some of the lightest lights, like the trunks of those dead trees, and maybe the path up the hill. Try to use colors in the wash that make sense, that I could just leave and let kind of shine through. And then toward the end of the wash, I may add back a little bit more concentrated paint, darker paint, to establish that value pattern. I kind of use the Gamsol wash as a way to develop a few no-tans. Just play with where things are, play with the size and shapes of the big objects, and see what looks good to me as I'm doing that. And then I can just follow that as I paint the scene with the full colors.
And again, when I look at stuff that I did as a child, it was all painting dogs and things like that. So that's always sort of stayed with me.
Alright, I've got some colors mixed up here. I've got a deep cobalt blue with titanium white mixed up for the sky. A little bit lighter version of that I had from the other day that I can use as it comes down. It gets a little lighter in value and a little more yellow. I've got some green for the background trees. I tried to keep that a little bit cooler to push it back, a little bluer in the sun and in the shade. I've got a purple for the shadows throughout. Near and far, I can dip into that purple. I can darken it with more alizarin crimson and more ultramarine blue as it gets closer, and I can lighten it with maybe some of the sky color as it gets farther away. I've got some warmer green for those background trees where they pick up that beautiful warm orange, and I've got that for where it's getting hit by the sun and where it's in the shadow. Then I've got some different shades for the foreground, a little greener, a little browner, a little darker, a little lighter, and I can also dip into some of my primary colors on my palette here to shift those. I'll try to just use some of these colors, these darker colors, for the shadows in the foreground too, where the trees are casting shadows on the foreground. I can use this lightest value also where the sun is hitting some of the trunks in the background, and I have some cooler pale colors left over from the other day that I can also use. I took off my gloves because there's a hornet that just is loving my gloves, so I didn't want the hornet to climb under my glove while I wasn't paying attention and stinging me. I'll start with this number 7 evergreen long flat and paint the sky. Dip it in a little bit of Gamsol first just to help the paint slide off the brush. I'm going to paint down over the edge of where the trees will go and then paint back into it to give it a nice soft edge. It's coming on fall, so the bears are out and they're trying to gain weight before the cold weather hits, before they hibernate. If you're alone and you're worried about bears or cougar wildlife sneaking up on you, or you sneaking up on them and surprising them, one thing you can do if you're not around other people, you can play a podcast or play some music on your iPhone, on your mobile phone while you're walking. That way, or you can sing or you can whistle, but that's one thing you can do to make some noise. Make sure the wild animals are aware you're there, so you're not surprising them. You can also wear bear bells. I've got a set of those that I brought back from Japan. Almost all hikers, especially in Hokkaido, wear bear bells as they hike. They have cute little tiny brown bear and black bear that very rarely attack people. I think the only attacks happen when the bear gets startled. So it's best to make some noise so you don't startle them. Well, here's where it ended up. A 9 by 12 inch oil on linen panel. Yeah, challenging subject. Trying to capture the height of those trees on the slope. But a fun challenge, beautiful place. I'll take it back to the studio and take a look at it, see if it's worth changing or if there's something bigger I can make out of it. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.